Previously on Jay Speaks.
I do want to talk about Cramden's slogan, get tech, learn tech, give tech. So how have you seen the company live out that statement since you've been working?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, when people see Cramden, it's not immediately obvious what we do. So we've integrated this series of, taglines into our logo so that people know what we are, what we do. So if I can talk a little bit about these three things. Get tech. It's been at the heart of what we do for many years. We started out providing desktop computer systems, supported desktop computer systems to kids in grades K through 12. So they get a computer and we put an open source system on it. It's very secure, very easy to use, and then it extends the life of the device, and they're able to use it till they graduate high school. That has been what we've done for many, many years. As an extension of that, we have been able to provide low-cost devices to adults that have, basically like a financial need or just can't afford like a brand new device. We want to make sure that they have access to that. So we have low-cost device programs for adults. And then we also work with nonprofits. So nonprofit organizations, schools, faith-based organizations, we're able to provide equipment for general use for their organizations. So, someone sees Cramden and says, get tech, that is sort of what that means. We want to provide access to this equipment that is given a second life. I mentioned that we started our education programming later, so around 2014, 2015. So when it comes to Learn Tech, a lot of this kind of stems back to what we would call our tech topics programs, where we just have a few different workshops that we would provide to the public for free. That's sort of how I approached the organization with my art residency. And we still do those to a certain extent, but when I joined the organization, it was to take kind of our growing computer basics program or digital literacy program and provide it in the community. We were doing it to a certain extent in our office, but going out into the community where people are was really how we were going to reach the people that we wanted to reach. And we were fortunate enough to get a grant to be able to do this and provide a device. So that was key, that they can take this class with us, but also practice on the device and then take it home afterwards. So fast forward a bit, and we have youth programs. We've got some after-school programs. We do a whole slate of summer camps on STEM and STEAM topics. And we also just want to generally provide this access and augment some of the resources or supplant them in case there aren't any resources in these topics for students. To a certain extent, the computer basics programs that we do, they are meant to reach someone with little to no skill, but there's a lot of information that anyone can get out of them, and there's a lot of workforce applicable curriculum that we teach and provide as well. So that's sort of the Learn Tech aspect of it. And then when it comes to Give Tech, we couldn't do what we do if we didn't have donations. So we live in a very fortunate area, a lot of skill here, a lot of technology. So, I don't know about you, most of us have some sort of old device in our closet sitting around. It's got sensitive data on it. We don't really know what to do with it. We don't want to throw it away. We might have a personal attachment to it. But we also know that it needs to be disposed of properly. So that's how we do what we do. We take computers that have been donated to us, and we will take them regardless of operability. So if it's If it doesn't work, or if it's broken into pieces, or if it's 20 years old, we will still take it. That's just what we do. You can give us your tech. We get old stuff. We get new stuff. We get donations from individuals. We get donations from companies and organizations. So we take those donations, and then we're able to process them. We're able to refurbish them and distribute them back into the community. But as well as a part of getting tech, you know, I want to kind of expand on that a little bit. We have a lot of high-skilled talent in the area. So we couldn't do what we do without volunteers, and a lot of the volunteers in this area have a lot of ability, a lot of skills that we can leverage. Now, that being said, we don't need you to have technical skills to volunteer here. We will teach you on site what you need to know. But the fact that we have so many people in the IT sector in this area that will come volunteer, we're able to get a lot out of that. So that's part of what they're giving with Giving Tech, is giving that expertise. And then I'll just add briefly, another thing that they can do to give tech is to give financial support. So we get donations from individuals, we get donations from grants and organizations, and then in more recent years we are included in some of the more recent government funding that has been distributed throughout the states for a variety of purposes.
Wow, thank you for your answer and going into such great detail. So, I mean, from your answer, you talked about
Introducing Cramden, the nonprofit that is bridging the digital divide.
Well, we have to start talking to our children. We talk to our children about drugs. We'll talk to our children sometimes about sex. We'll talk to our children about a lot of different stuff. But we won't talk to our children about healthy relationships. Sometimes we don't demonstrate healthy relationships. You know, when we talk about domestic violence, a lot of people, when you hear domestic violence, you think about the physical, like somebody putting their hands on. It's way more than that. There is emotional abuse, psychological abuse. There is financial abuse. You know, you got a lot of women won't leave simply because that individual is making more of the money. And so what are they going to do? Where are they going to live? How are they going to make ends meet? I've got somebody that I'm working with now that's dealing with financial abuse, and they don't know how to get out. But we got to start having these conversations. As we start having conversations with our children early and often about healthy relationships, what is domestic violence? What is sexual assault? What is consent? All these things. We're never going to end it, but we can put a dent in what's happening to a lot of people in our societies. And I want to make it clear, this is not just an issue for women, it's an issue for men as well.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. For those of you who are subscribed to Jay Speaks, thank you so much and welcome back. As you know, it is my mission, it is my passion to bring to you all Conversation topics that are positive, motivational, educational, and informational. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to be here with Ed Dudley and to introduce you all to Shining Light in Darkness, a sexual assault and domestic violence nonprofit located right here in Durham, North Carolina. Ed Dudley, his wife Florida DeVaul Dudley, and their greater team believe that there's a vital need for culturally sensitive support and essential resources for the survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence in underserved communities. It is the nonprofit's charge to engage voices to create change in the prevention, intervention, and response to sexual assault and domestic violence, and create healthy relationships and compassionate communities. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit back, relax, and most importantly, listen. And hopefully after today's episode, you'll understand for yourself the importance of Shining Light in Darkness and how they are faithfully caring deeply for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence so that they can empower them to not only heal, but rebuild their lives.
My
I've
pleasure.
been sincerely looking forward to this interview, to be outside. We're in downtown Durham right now, guys. But before we get started, I just want, to take a moment for you to introduce yourself. Please share a little bit about yourself, Shining Light in Darkness,
Yeah.
the nonprofit's history, whatever you care to share, please.
Yeah, so my name is Ed Dudley. From Massachusetts, grew up, raised there, and had the pleasure of living in a lot of different cities. Do a lot of different things: financial advisor, nonprofit leader, community servant. But at my core, it's about serving people. My motto that I try to live by is: it's not what I do for a living, but what I do for the living.
Ooh, I like that.
So my wife and I started a nonprofit. She's the founder, I'm the co-founder, called Shining Light in Darkness. And the history of the organization, I tell everyone, it really started in 1977, but it just because of some traumatic events my wife went through. So at 7 years old, she dealt with molestation at the hands of an uncle. In her early 20s, she dealt with date rape. And then a previous relationship, she dealt with domestic violence. When I met her, I always tell people Prince Charming came on the scene and took her away from all that. But I met her and she started sharing a couple of the things, not everything with me, because we knew we were going to start, we knew we were dating seriously. We knew marriage was in the path. And she started sharing what happened to her in a previous relationship in her 20s. When we knew that we were going to potentially get married, she said, I need to share everything about me with you. And I'll never forget where I was. I was sitting on the edge of my bed at my home in Atlanta. And she shared with me what happened at the age of 7. And I had no idea what to say at that point. Like, well, what do you say to someone that shares with you something so traumatic? And I told her, I said, that doesn't matter. I said, I care about the person that I see today and then building a future. So I moved her, 2 little girls, out of Mississippi to the Atlanta area. And I basically told her, I said, be a stay-at-home mom. Get the kids used to the area. I got you. So she tried to be that soccer mom and PTA mom, and that lasted for all of 2 months. And she said, there's no way I can do this. She said, I want to start a business. I'm like, all right, great. Start the business. I'm here to support you. Tell me what you need. Several of our family members have very successful businesses, and she said that's what I want to do. So she struggled with whether it should be a for-profit or nonprofit. And the thing is, like, we lean in on our faith. And when she was struggling, I was like, no, that's going to be a nonprofit. And he gave her the name, Shining Light in Darkness. So we started doing the work in Atlanta. And then 2015, we're still living in Atlanta. We drive to Durham to be with my family for a Labor Day cookout. And on the way back, we were in a very bad car accident right outside of Salisbury. Like every time we go down to 85, we look where we were in an accident. A yellow Mercedes compressor, hydroplaned, hit us, took us down this embankment. We took out the big giant lights. Both had concussions, but she had a lacerated liver. She was getting these neck injections to stabilize some of her vertebrae, and she was dealing with partial paralysis on one side. And when I tell everyone that, they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Well, that's not the worst part. The worst part was all that trauma that she had suppressed came spraying out. Imagine shaking a Coke bottle for years, just for shaking it. And then one day something opens and it sprays out, and that's what happened. So she started spraying out all over the place, just trying to quiet the noise in her voice, in her head. And when we finally got her in a much better place, she says, "If that happened to me, how many other women or individuals are walking around the same way?" She said, "I got to do more." So we moved here in about 2016, 2017. We just started doing the work here in the area. In 2019, we officially turned it into a nonprofit. The Durham Police Department's Victim Service Unit finds us. Started doing some business, some cases with them, helping clients. Our Social Service Department finds us. We started doing some business cases with them, and the rest is history. So prior to June of this year, we were 100% volunteer-led and run organization. I'm happy to share right now that we've been deemed eligible to start receiving state grants for funding that can help increase our impact now. So we're excited right now. We're in an amazing season of growth, but more importantly, an amazing season of impact, of helping survivors.
Wow. So what communities do you serve in particular?
So I tell everybody, we serve everyone.
You serve everyone.
We serve everyone, because if someone's coming to us, they have a need. So we're never turning anyone a door. But what we do, we have a focus on what we consider the underserved market of those who are dealing with sexual assault, domestic violence. That's men. A lot of men are not going to talk about being abused or dealing with domestic violence. They're not talking about it. We literally had a gentleman walk before we set up, was talking about he dealt with domestic violence. Men are not going to talk about it. I wish men would get more open, because it happens more often. We're going to deal with individuals with disabilities. And the reason why we do that, we ran into an individual that shared with my wife that she was confined to a wheelchair with spina bifida, couldn't walk, and how she was sexually assaulted by her doctor. We deal with people from the LGBT community. And I get a lot of grief from some of my Christian colleagues, like, why are you working with them? Why are you condoning what they're doing? I'm like, I'm not condoning what they're doing. I'm serving them. Because if they come to us in need, there is a need. What would Jesus do? And they tend to change their mind a little bit. We work with veterans and active duty, because there's a big problem with a lot of our homeless vets that are women, have dealt with military sexual trauma. In fact, even in the military, I had someone that is a colonel in the military share with me that even some of the wives of some of our servicemen, about almost 50% of them that they know have been sexually assaulted in one way or another. So that's a big problem. But our biggest subset that we work with are women of color. And I always have to explain to people, when we talk about women of color, it's not just Black women or African American women. There's Asian women, Pan-Asian women, there's Latin American women, Hispanic women. So those are the main subsets that we work with, but we serve everyone. So anyone that comes through our door that needs help, we're going to help you to the best of our ability.
So how do you, if you do, how do you cater to each community differently? I would assume, catering to men who don't have any disabilities would be different than catering to a woman who does have a disability versus someone who's in the LGBTQ community. So maybe I'm wrong. How?
You're not completely wrong, but what happens is when you call us, the first thing we're trying to do is ascertain, are you in crisis? Is something going on with you right now? Do we need to come with you to the hospital? Because sometimes we need someone that's just been sexually assaulted wants somebody to help them in the hospital. Do we need to go to court with you? Do you need an advocate to sit by you and hold your hand within the court system? Have you just escaped violence and you have nothing with you but clothes on your back? We'll help you provide up to 2 weeks worth of clothing to help you there. Are you hungry? Well, I'll provide food. Do you need emergency shelter? On a case-by-case basis, based on our budget, we provide emergency shelter. Now, we don't physically have a shelter ourselves, but what we do, we have put them in scattered hotels around the city and making sure they're taken care of. Once we figure out if they're out of immediate danger, then we ascertain what's next, what's needed next. And we offer everyone that comes through our agency up to 10 sessions of free therapy.
Wow.
So man, woman, children, does not matter. You're going to get 10 sessions of therapy. And then after all that is done, then we start to take a look at what are your other needs. Maybe you're not ready to leave your abuser. So we help with safety planning. Like, when you're ready to leave, you got a plan in place to leave. So we'll serve everyone, and we just look at their immediate needs. But overall, everybody's getting the exact same services. It might be tailored a little bit different to their need, but everyone's getting overall the exact same services.
So piggybacking off of your comment, not ready to leave your abuser, why do you believe that, victims of sexual assault, victims of domestic violence, why is it so hard for them to leave their abusers? Or in other words, what are some factors that, you know, cause the underreporting of sexual assault or, contribute to that?
Okay, so that's a two-part question. So the underreporting of sexual assault, a lot of times it's fear. They're embarrassed. They don't want to go to let anyone know that that happened to them. I've seen that in too many cases. I know too many individuals that I've talked to that have not reported it. So we can sit and talk about statistics all day long, like 1 in 3, 1 in 6, and all that. That really doesn't mean a lot to me because too many people I've talked to have never reported. So the statistics could be much higher. And that's what's happening in sexual assault. Regarding domestic violence, on average, it takes someone 7 times before they leave. Now, it could be a lot of different things. Are they on average 7 times before they?
7 cases of abuse.
Well, 7 times. They try to leave 7 times.
Try to leave 7 times.
Yep, it takes them 7 times before they leave. Sometimes it's financial. They're scared. I was talking to someone from DSS, and she said half her caseload are looking for housing. But there's no shelters around here in Durham available right now for anyone to get into, so they stay. So it could be shelter, where they're going to go. Maybe don't have any family. One that blew me away a few years ago was pets. The pets have been threatened to be harmed. So if you have a emotionally support animal that you love, and let's be honest, a lot of people's pets are part of their family. And if you threaten to say, I'm gonna hurt your animal, or I'm gonna hurt your dog, I'm gonna hurt your cat if you try to leave me. And then a lot of times it's emotional. They feel like this individual is going to change. It only happened a few times and things like that. Any young women I talk to, I'm like, if a man puts his hand on you the first time, that's an indication that it possibly might happen again. And I say the same thing if it's a same-sex couple. If that individual puts their hand on you the first time, it's probably going to happen again. You need to make an escape plan as soon as possible. But yeah, you were alarmed by that 7 times to leave, and I was alarmed the first time. I heard it, but there's so many other factors that are in there why they stay.
Do you care to share?
Like I said, financial.
Oh, okay.
The financial, housing. It could be children. They're scared about children. I have one individual that I know, and they'll keep their name nameless. They went to their pastor to share that they were dealing with domestic violence. And their pastor said, well, I know this gentleman loves you. I think you should stay there and try to make it work. Unknowingly, he could have sent her to a death sentence. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of individuals that don't make it out of domestic violence situations. So there's a lot of factors that go in through that. And we never know what anyone's really thinking. Some people are like, oh, who's going to love me? Well, love doesn't hurt.
You're right.
So, I think we need to have, I know we need to have more conversations, open conversations about the subject of domestic violence in particular and sexual assault. I really want to get inside the schools and talk to these kids in middle school. We're actually working with a middle school here in Durham for all black and brown boys called Durham Nativity, where we'll be teaching them about healthy relationships. I want to get inside all the public schools and talk about healthy relationships. What's a healthy relationship? What is respecting boundaries? More importantly, what's consent? We don't talk about consent enough. And a lot of our young men and women have no idea what consent really means. So that's one of the things I try to do is educate as much as possible.
So, in general, why do you believe that sexual assault and domestic violence is so prevalent in the world that we live in? Like through the clients that you've worked with, or your just understanding of the topic in general?
I will say that we have a lot of miseducation. And just be honest, we have a lot of broken people. And then it's the saying, hurt people hurt people. A lot of times someone that is an abuser dealt with abuse in one form or another in their lifetime. Whether it was through a parent, a guardian, whatever, they've dealt with it on their own. And they in turn become abusers. But we don't talk about it enough. It's one of those subjects somewhat taboo. Like if I start talking, if we were to have a conversation and you just met me and I start talking about domestic violence and sexual assault, most people get uncomfortable. A lot of men get very uncomfortable. when we talk about it. I have my thoughts why people get uncomfortable. And these are just my thoughts. My thoughts are some may get uncomfortable because they realize at one point or another they may have abused someone or assaulted someone. I think some women get uncomfortable because maybe they've dealt with it, but they've never really got it out. Or they know someone in this situation. Up until my wife and I started this organization, I knew about domestic violence and sexual assault, but it was here, it wasn't in my purview, because it wasn't in my circle or someone close to me. But as I started asking questions and peeling back the onion, I realized it was really close to me, because I had a family member that was in a domestic violence situation, and I had a family member that was sexually assaulted at a young age. I have a family member that was an abuser. And if we start asking questions, a lot of times we meet people and talk to people, we ask these superficial questions. Oh, where you from? What you study school for? Especially if you get into a relationship. I want to ask questions. Tell me about your family history. You know, one of the questions I always pose to men to go back and ask every single woman in their life that's close to them, what are your experiences with domestic violence or sexual assault? And a lot of them answer. You will be shocked. While they may not have a personal story, they know someone that does. We were just on the campus of Elon University on Sunday for the new student orientation for freshmen. And we had our table set up, and there was a lot of stuff going on. One young lady, looked like she was about 18 years old, came up to the table, tell me about what this is. And she started sharing. She was just assaulted a month ago, out of the country. She's not seeing a therapist right now. She's not ready to see a therapist. So I got up, let my wife continue to talk with her, because sometimes some women are not going to feel comfortable talking with the man about the subject. So I let her hold space with my wife and share what was going on, what happened with her. So that's someone that's going to probably end up a client, but it happens everywhere. Like right now, everybody's going back to school on our universities. We're in what we call the red zone. The red zone in college is that first semester before your fall break, more sexual assaults happen on campus than any other time of the year.
Why?
Why? Alcohol. You got a lot of young people leaving home for the very first time and have no guardrails around them, so they can do whatever they want, run around. And then you have some individuals that have not been taught what consent is, have not been taught to keep their hands to themselves. It's just a lot of other factors. And then inside that red zone, there's young men that have been assaulted as well. But most young men are not going to say, I was sexually assaulted. That's not something men we're going to talk about. We're not going to open up and say, oh, I was sexually assaulted. I had a gentleman, he is about 6'4", 6'5", 260 pounds. After building a relationship with him, he shared with me that he was sexually assaulted. He shares that I will not wear a jersey of this certain team because I had that jersey on when I was assaulted, so I can't stand that team now. And I never thought about that. That was a trigger for him. A trigger was that uniform for that team. Triggers can be sights, sounds, smells. Anything can be a trigger.
So you talked about how young men or men in general, when the topic of sexual assault comes up, they get embarrassed, they close in, and women who have been sexually assaulted, they also fear to speak about that publicly. So they kind of like hold this weight, this emotional weight,
Oh yeah,
all their lives, or the rest of their lives. So like my question to you is, how can untreated sexual assault affect somebody emotionally, spiritually, physically?
it can stunt them in so many ways, and I've seen it firsthand. You see some people turn to alcohol. Some people turn to drugs. Some people turn to promiscuity. Some people that have been assaulted in churches, let's just be honest, that won't ever go back because it's been untreated. My wife shares that for the longest, she never got treatment. She lived a normal life. That accident triggered all those suppressed memories. So we don't know, people, we might have somebody standing over there that happened to them, but they suppressed it. They don't want to talk about it. They bury it. And we're human. We bury a lot of stuff. The problem is a lot of people don't feel like they have a safe space to talk. So if I was assaulted, I'm probably not talking to a lot of people. and let somebody open up a safe space for me to actually share. And a lot of times they want to share with someone that may have been through something similar that's on the other side. Like, how do I get on the other side of it? Like I said earlier, some women are not going to talk to me. We had a call from someone that called. I answered the call, and she says, I'm looking for help, but do you have a woman I can talk to? I don't feel comfortable talking to you. Yes, we do. Well, we have to start talking to our children. We talk to our children about drugs. We'll talk to our children sometimes about sex. We'll talk to our children about a lot of different stuff, but we won't talk to our children about healthy relationships. Sometimes we don't demonstrate healthy relationships. You know, when we talk about domestic violence, a lot of people, when you hear domestic violence, you think about the physical, like somebody putting their hands on. It's way more than that. There is emotional abuse, psychological abuse. There is financial abuse. You know, you got a lot of women won't leave simply because that individual is making more of the money. And so what are they going to do? Where are they going to live? How are they going to make ends meet? I've got somebody that I'm working with now that's dealing with financial abuse, and they don't know how to get out. But we got to start having these conversations. As we start having conversations with our children early and often about healthy relationships, what is domestic violence? What is sexual assault? What is consent? All these things. We're never going to end it, but we can put a dent in what's happening to a lot of people in our societies. And I want to make it clear, this is not just an issue for women, it's an issue for men as well.
So when it comes to speaking to children, how early is the right age?
I'm not a psychologist.
What would you do if you could do it over again?
If I can do it over again, I would start talking to kids in middle school. Because a lot of times, think about middle school, that's when they're trying to figure out who they are. That's when the hormones start clicking for both boys and girls. And you start talking to them then about it, I think that can help. I think a little earlier than that, I think it might be a little too early, but that middle school talk, well, there's some places you can go to younger, you talk about what's a safe spot to touch. You know, they call their body parts different names. If somebody touches you here, you got to let an adult know. So you can start talking about that early, but when it starts coming to straight domestic violence and the physical and stuff like that, I think we start in middle school. And you know, and then you'll have some people that will disagree, and I'm quite all right with that. But I know I want to get into the middle schools, because I remember when I was in middle school, that's when my hormones started raging, and I'm noticing all the girls and all that stuff. So if we can get them then and educate them early, I think things will look a little better.
Interesting. Thank you for your response. So my next question, I want to kind of pull back a little bit. What is the difference between domestic abuse and domestic violence?
They're basically the same thing.
So they're the same thing?
Yeah. So what I think you're looking at is domestic violence and intimate partner violence.
Oh,
so
domestic violence and intimate partner.
So they're still violence. The domestic violence could be me abusing you. It could be mother abusing son, mother abusing older mother. That's domestic in that household. Intimate partner violence is if you and I were dating. You're not my type, but if you and I were dating and I perpetrated violence on you, that's intimate partner violence because we were partners. So that's the main thing. It's still abuse. They're just different names. And some people use them interchangeably. Inter-partner violence, domestic violence. So those are the major differences between them.
Interesting. Is that publicly known? I feel as though I hear
you hear domestic violence. You're going to hear domestic violence. You'll hear intimate partner violence mostly from people that are doing the work. You hear that. From the general public, you're really going to hear just domestic violence.
So intimate partner violence, that's what you hear that more so in therapy.
Not necessarily, not even therapy, just in agencies that are doing the work like domestic violence and sexual assault agencies like Shining Light. You'll hear that more from people that know the work and understand, and even some advocates. But from the general public, they usually just say domestic violence. And then when you hear domestic violence, you're always thinking about physical. And it's much more. I tell people when I'm talking to them, I say, the physical part, if somebody's hurt, a bruise can heal, a broken bone can heal. But when you beat somebody up so bad emotionally and psychologically, they might live with that forever. You got some individuals that beat you up, you're ugly, you're worthless, you're ugly, you're worthless. And they've heard that for years. Now that it's in them now because no one spoke life into them. So one of the things I try to do is every time I talk to we speak life into you. And I tell everyone, when someone calls up, if we're onboarding a client, I'm always going to tell them, you know, you're not just a case number, not just a name, you're part of our family. Every single last person, you're part of our family. And hopefully we are not one of those crazy families like Medea's family, but hopefully we're a family that, they feel trusted and cared about.
So speaking of family, I just want to piggyback on one of your answers. I don't think it was an answer per se, but you mentioned it in an answer about a family member being an abuser.
Mm.
So to tie that into Shining Light in Darkness, does Shining Light in Darkness, do you guys only work with victims of sexual assault and domestic violence, or in some cases, do you work with the abusers?
No.
Do the abusers ever call you and say, hey, I feel guilty about what I did?
No.
No.
We've never had that. So we draw a sign in the ground that we only work with victims and survivors. We don't work with abusers.
Why is that?
There could be a conflict of interest at times, if you think about it.
I understand that.
So you can have an abuser call you, I need help. Then you have the victim calling, I need help. So you're typically never going to see that through any agency. So there's not as many agencies that help abusers. I literally thought in my head, it's like, imagine if we can get to the abusers earlier while they're younger, because maybe they went through something that turned into abuser. What can we do to help them? But we solely focus on the survivors, because that number is, unfortunately, it's a big number.
So do you know, or have you been in contact with or had a conversation with a male or female abuser?
I've had conversations with a male abuser. And the conversation went sort of like this. I did what I saw growing up. The man is the head of the house, and the female is subservient. I watched my mother and others get beat. I thought that was what you're supposed to do. I thought that's how you showed love. I thought that's how you showed care and stuff like that. And we're like, no. Now, I can't say if this individual is still an abuser or not, but it was interesting to hear from an abuser and some of those things. But a lot of them, it's about power and control. I'm going to exert my power over you, and I'm going to use that to control you, whether it's intimidation, threats, or whatever. I highly recommend people, if you're ever listening to this, go back and pull up the power and control wheel. Because at the center is the abuser, the person that thinks they have the power and the control, and they use a lot of different ways to try to control you. We talked about pets. I heard an individual said the person threatened to kill their dog if they left. So it's like, I'm not leaving because I'm not going to kill my dog. Or I'm going to hurt a family member. Or I'm going to do this. So it's a lot of threats around that will. One of the things that a lot of people shy away from is spiritual abuse. I talk about, you're not going to see it on our site at all. My foundation is faith-based, but there's a lot of spiritual abuse going on in churches, using scriptures to manipulate people and control people, not reading the full text, not reading before, not exegeting the text, because they want to control people from a religious standpoint. And I don't care what religion you look at, Judaism, Christianity, Muslim. There are certain individuals, like if you think about the terrorists, the Muslim terrorists, a lot of people like to talk about them. They're using their scriptures to control people and do other things. We can go back to the Christianity early days where they use scriptures to control their slaves. You can even talk about now where a lot of people are exerting their Christian views to control and manipulate people on a lot of different avenues. So that's a whole nother ball game to talk about. And our agency, Shining Light, does not get into the whole spiritual abuse piece, but I like to talk about it because my foundation is faith, and I've seen some of that abuse happen inside the church. But at the end of the day, it's about exerting power and control over another person. And that person could be a man, that person could be a woman, that person be an individual that identifies as him, her, these shits, or whatever. It's all about power and control.
That makes sense. And I can see, that definitely makes sense, especially the man of the house type of ideal. I know that you specifically stated that you've only talked to a male abuser, but what would you surmise would be the justification or the why behind a female batterer?
So we had someone that came to us that was a male victim. 6'3", big guy. Um, his girlfriend at the time broke his nose. She had it's the same thing as a man. It's about power and control, trying to exert power and control. But a lot of times, what people don't talk about is a lot of women don't necessarily do the physical abuse. They do the psychological, emotional abuse. If you have a child with them, you're not going to see your child. I'm not going to let you see your child. Well, because you're exerting control, because you are holding in the child with you, but you're using that child as, nope, you're not going to see him. I have an individual that was constantly talked down to, emotional abuse. So the abuser, whether you're male or female, or however you identify, it's still about you trying to control another person, manipulate them, and exert your perceived power over them, whether it's man or woman. We just see the numbers are overwhelmingly women, but we don't talk about men enough. Like I'm sure you've seen some videos on social media of our young people in high school where the girl is slapping the boy or pushing the boy or getting all up in the boys. That's abuse. That's abuse. A lot of the guys, they take it because they know they physically you can overtake a woman, but they're take it, but they don't realize you're in an abusive relationship. That's one of the reasons why I want to get into the school systems with the young, talk to many young people as a parent, because it's not okay. I don't care if you're a girl or a boy. It's not okay. Keep your hands to yourself. If you don't know how to control your emotions will control you, and that's what happens with a lot of abusers.
So do you have any more signs that you can share as to, knowing if you're in an abusive relationship or dealing with an abusive partner?
Yeah. Are they constantly trying to control you? Are they controlling where you go, what you do? Are they trying to isolate you from family and friends and say, oh, well, you're going to leave me? Why don't you stay with me? Have they threatened you? Another one is you got some individuals like, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself. That happens. Or if you leave me, I'm going to kill you and your family and things like that. You got some individuals that, have access to weapons. And that's a real problem. That's a real problem, especially if I know I'm being abused and I know this individual has access to a weapon. I'm concerned. So look at your surroundings. Look at how you're being treated, how you're being talked to, and you'll see it. I also tell family members, pay attention. How is your family member, whether it's a daughter, sister, aunt, cousin, brother, whatever, how are they being treated by their spouse? You might see the warning signs where they don't see them at first, but you got to tread lightly, because sometimes when you try to tell somebody you're in a bad position, they're going to look at you like no, and then they're going to shut you out. I always tell survivors, try to reach out to anybody, but if I saw someone that is was an abusive situation, I'm going to sit down and talk to them and say, are you okay? Do you feel safe? What's going on? We don't ask a lot of questions. We don't ask the right questions. How was your day? What you have to eat for lunch? How many times have you asked someone just out of how are you feeling? Are you okay? How are things at home? Oh, we got to get past the superficial questions.
So on your website, I noticed that there's a tab or a section that talks about the cycle of abuse. Care to discuss that? What is a part of the cycle of abuse?
Yeah. So if you look at it, domestic violence, it follows this cycle. The first cycle is tension building. This is where the threats are happening and the tension is rising, the air is getting thick. The next one is the explosion phase. This is where it could get violent. A lot of things, maybe doors are slamming, things are being thrown, or you're being touched. That is the tension phase. That next phase is what's called the honeymoon phase. That honeymoon phase where the person, he, she, they, them, they apologize profusely, do gifts, try to do everything nice now because it's been a honeymoon. Then it's the break or the calm phase where everything's just peaceful and quiet. And then it goes back to tension, then the explosion, then the honeymoon. You can see it in a cycle in virtually every domestic violence situation. I had a gentleman come and sit in my office that was in crisis, the domestic violence. And on my credenza, I have a flyer that says the cycle of abuse. And he's sitting there, he looks at the flyer, and looks at me, looks at the flyer and starts crying. He said, I'm right here. And he points to the explosion phase, and he starts crying. And we sit there and have a conversation about trying to get him to center himself and ground himself to feel a little better. I'm happy to say that things are so much better for him, but you can follow that cycle, and you can see it in virtually every domestic violence situation over and over and over again. And you can kind of tell what's going to happen. Anybody that's in that situation, they can tell he's calm right now, but if I don't cook, or if I don't clean, or if I don't do this, if I don't do what he says, that tension is going to start building up again. And then he's going to explode, or her, she's going to explode, or they're going to explode. And then the honeymoon. If you find yourself in that cycle, anyone that's listening to this, look at your relationship. If you find yourself in that cycle, you need to figure out a way to get help to get out of that cycle. You may not be ready to leave, but call an agency, like Shine a Light, wherever you are. Every area has an agency that handles domestic violence and sexual assault. Call them. Someone will talk to you. Someone will help you put an escape plan. Sometimes it's just good just to talk and get it out. Because sometimes once you hear yourself saying certain things, you realize, wow, yeah, I'm in not a great situation right now.
And I can imagine that the problematic phase, although the explosion phase is very obvious, but I feel as though the problematic phase out of that whole entire cycle is the honeymoon phase. Because the honeymoon phase, that's the phase that puts a Band-Aid on a cracked wall.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like a cop out.
Yeah. So especially, I subscribe to the 5 languages of love. Everybody doesn't subscribe to them. I subscribe to that. That honeymoon phase is that gift giving. So if you're never one of your top love languages, gift giving, and now this person is giving you gifts and cards and flowers and or taking you on trips and then going to massage, doing your favorite thing, whatever, that's that honeymoon phase.
And that's manipulative.
Oh, completely.
Especially if your partner knows you and they know what you like.
And that's part of the power and control wheel.
That's the power of the control wheel. Yep.
Manipulation. Yep.
Manipulation.
Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Hi, my name is Isa. I am a social worker and I have been in the industry for over 10 years. I have done a lot of work, but my passion lies with individuals who have experienced domestic violence. Domestic violence is a serious issue. It is not okay to hurt someone intentionally with words, with feelings, by gaslighting, financially, spiritually, and most definitely not physically. Here at Shining Light in Darkness, we advocate strongly against all of those things. We recognize that domestic violence has many different forms and that it can happen to anyone. If you or someone you know who is experiencing abuse, any type of abuse, call us. We are here for you. Call us at 919-791-5578. We'll be more than happy to help.
So speaking of manipulation, psychological and emotional, I also saw on your website too, the 5 signs of psychological and emotional abuse.
Yeah, gaslighting.
Yeah,
gaslighting is a term that just came out a few years ago. I didn't hear about gaslighting until I got much older. I had some hair, I think, before that. But the whole thing about psychological abuse, constantly putting somebody down. You're worthless. Nobody else is going to want you. Saying things like that. I overheard someone tell an individual, I'm in the mall, you got 5 kids, who else gonna want you? That's emotional abuse. And it's things like that. Those are the things that stick with people longer than the physical act. Because you got people that are, I'll tell you a story, my wife and I, we were at a store. And I am an introvert by nature. My wife is an extrovert. I can drop my wife right down here and pick her up in 2 hours and she will know everybody. You drop me down here, I'm out. I'm hopping the Uber and I'm going home. So we were in this store and there was a couple, older couple, old enough to be our grandparents. and we struck up conversation. And then her and my wife got really friendly, and they want to stay in contact. So my wife pulls out her card, shining a light, and the woman says, "What's shining a light?" And my wife begins to share with her why we exist, share a little bit about her story. This old woman, she had elderly woman, she had to be about 85, somewhere in there. She started sharing her story with my wife and starts crying. Now, the husband and I are standing over here, and he's looking, he's like, I don't know what's going on. He says she's never shared that story with anyone, ever, 85 years old. My wife gave her a big hug, and she just started bawling because she's never went and sought help for that. Was it physical? I don't know. I didn't ask questions about it. But that emotional toll, can you imagine? So let's say that abuse happened to her in her 20s, and now she's 85. She's carrying that weight. We talked about carrying that weight of abuse and trauma for all these years and never letting out. It's unhealthy. That's why a lot of people that's why a lot of people get sick. You know, there's an amazing book out there, and I forget the author's name. It's a book called The Body Keeps Score. It's talk about how trauma in the body affects us on a molecular level. People that have been sexually assaulted, they tend to get sick more. They tend to have more diseases and ailments than the normal person because their body was shaken in a traumatic way in an early age. They tend to shut down sometimes too. So yeah, but that psychological and emotional abuse, I can wear some people out. We got a lot of look at some women if they're walking with their significant other and if their head is kind of down and 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 walking around and not really smiling, laughing, chances are she's dealing with something. So I pay attention to my family members, and people in my circle just to how they're carrying themselves. Because if someone at one point was very bubbly and outgoing, and all of a sudden they've started to become withdrawn, something's going on. And I try to find out the best way I can, but sometimes we got to let individuals share when they're ready to share. But I'm the type of individual. I'm always going to get my card out with my number. Call me if you need some help. If you don't want to talk to me, I got somebody else that you can talk to. You don't want to talk to them, I'll point you in another direction to somebody to talk to. That's one of our biggest problems. We don't talk enough about the right stuff. We can talk about sports all day long.
Right.
We can talk about cooking channels and travel and kids, but a lot of times that's a surface talk. We don't get deep and unearth some of that stuff that's rooted in us. And until you rip some of that stuff up from the root, this is going to keep growing.
Absolutely. So the 5 signs. So you said gaslighting. So are
There's gaslighting. I don't remember all of them right now because I'm sitting here with this bug keep bothering me. There's gaslighting. There's manipulation. Um, there's a few others that I'm not recalling right at this time. But you can go to our website, shinealightndarkness.org. There's a resource tab that will pull a lot of different resources for you to look at. Um, Pay attention to your friends, your sisters, your brothers.
body language.
Body language.
The body can speak more than the mouth.
The body will always speak more than the mouth. And that, like we just talked about, are they holding their head down? Are they shying away from people, withdrawing from people? If you have a family member that's all of a sudden started isolating themselves, where they used to be at all the family gatherings and things like that, but now they're a little isolated. Or they come, but they're sitting off to the side, not really engaging with anyone. And it's so crazy. There's so many movies out there that have domestic violence in them. Prior to doing all this work, I never paid attention to a lot of it. There's a lot of, if you look at The Color Purple,
Oh yeah.
there's so much domestic violence,
Oh yeah.
sexual assault going on in that movie. There's a movie with Jennifer Lopez called Enough, where she escaped her abuser and she got him in the end. A couple Tyler Perry movies have something going on with domestic violence and things like that. So it's out there. We just need to talk about it more in public settings. But more importantly, about talking about it, we need to put resources behind it. We don't have enough resources behind it at all. We're right here downtown Durham. There's only one shelter for domestic violence survivors here in Durham. They can only handle about 14 beds or so. 6 of those are for adults. They stay full. In Raleigh, there's a larger agency. I think they got about 34 beds. They're a little bigger because they're covering all of Wake County. Over in Orange County, they don't really have a shelter. I received a stat from a colleague out of Orange County talking about In the state of North Carolina, it's a problem housing victims that are calling for support. They said, I haven't verified it yet, but only placement of about 5% people that are calling are actually being able to get into a shelter. We had a case that we worked with the Victim Service Unit of the Durham Police Department, where the victim lived in Orange County, was assaulted in Durham County, and because there was no place to put her and her child here in Durham, they put her out all the way out there to near Winston-Salem.
Whoa.
Because that was the only shelter that was open. And she could only stay there for 3 days.
And that's what, roughly an hour and a half?
Almost
2 hours?
About a little over 2 hours, yeah.
Wow.
They didn't know how they were going to get her back. So my wife, in her infinite wisdom, hi honey, if you're watching this, she had me get in the car and drive 2 hours, and we went and picked up her and her daughter, brought them back here, put them up somewhere safe for up to a month. Perpetrator had stolen their car, so our older daughter played Uber driver for about a month, making sure she got to work and school. We turned it into a family affair until she was able to find her car. But shelter's a huge problem. I mean, you look around Durham. Durham is just growing like crazy. It's like crazy. They're building everywhere. People are flocking to the Triangle and Groves. As our population grows, so do the problems.
Of course.
But we don't have enough resources for that. We don't have enough resources just to carry the people that are here. Now imagine the load. So yeah, so we're just doing our part to help as much as we possibly can.
Is a long-term goal for Shining Light in Darkness to fund a shelter, or?
Absolutely. So our long-term goal is to have a full-fledged standalone building, administrative offices, to have a shelter. Now, my vision of a shelter, I've never in my life done a vision board, and I have a friend of mine challenged me to do a vision board, and I built a shelter that looks like an apartment, because they've been through, and I'm really thinking about the children. They've been through so much, seeing some of these things that have happened. I want them to try to be as comfortable as possible. But I don't really want it to be a shelter. I want it to be more of a transition housing where they can stay 3 months, 6 months if they need to. But I envision the yard having a playground where the kids can go out and play and feel normal.
Wow.
Because a lot of times when you think of shelter, you think of a big room with a bunch of beds on top of each other. You just come through a traumatic experience. Now you just walk into that. Yes, you need a place to stay. How's that going to make you feel? You're nervous, you're scared, you got all these emotions going through, like who's right in the bed next to me? Who's over there? So that's one part. The other part is we want to build what's called a SANE center. SANE is sexual assault nurse examiner, where if someone has just been sexually assaulted, they typically go to one of the hospitals and they have to do basically a rape kit on them to get evidence. Unfortunately, some of the places that they've gone to in the Durham area and surrounding areas are not as trauma-informed as they should be. We would like to build one where we have a nurse practitioner that is a SANE certified nurse, or at least a couple, where if someone has dealt with that assault, they can come straight to us. They don't have to go to the emergency room, doctor, or whatever, and have to sit around and wait and everything. You come straight to us and get you taken care of. There's only one like that in our area, and it's over in Raleigh, and it's a beautiful thing that is there. And I didn't realize how bad we needed that up until I started seeing quotes from people that had gone to one of the local hospitals, things like that. So that's just part of it. I have a desire to create a social enterprise that can fund Shining Light, because unfortunately a lot of agencies like ours are funded through grants from the government, both state and federal. And you know how that goes. That ebbs and flows. You might have a lot of money one month, a lot of money, little money there. Last year, an agency they lost, I think it was like $400,000 over a couple of years. They let off 50% of their staff. So if you're laying off 50% of your staff, but the cases keep increasing, how do you take care of the people? You can't. So I want to build, I don't know what that looks like now, but I would love to build a social enterprise that funds our organization. That grants and everything are just additional work.
So how long for the shelter and how long for the enterprise?
Money, 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 money.
Well,
I say, show me the money. That famous line from Jeremy Maguire, show me the money. So it's all about funding. So I told you earlier that we were 100% volunteer led and run up until like I want to say about June that we got approved. We'll get our first tranche of resources from them probably. I think we might get a little bit this month, and the rest coming in November. That's still not nearly enough because you got to have the staff. With the staff, you got to have all the other things that go with it. We are going to work on putting a program, a plan into place to see what that looks like with a shelter, what building a shelter looks like. Don't know yet. I would love to say that we're getting funding next year and that we can build that out and we're good to go. But that's high on our list though.
Well, I sincerely hope that eventually you will.
Oh, we will
have a shelter.
Oh, we will. Without a doubt, we will.
Because one shelter in Durham is definitely not enough.
Oh, completely. My goal is to have the biggest shelter in the Triangle, if not the area. I want a place that people can come and feel like they're at home.
Nice. Now, I do want to ask, I don't know if we talked about this directly, but what services or programs does Shining Light in Darkness offer to its clients?
Yeah, so one of my favorite programs is, and you were fortunate enough to interview a colleague of ours, Gabby.
Yes.
But dance therapy.
Dance
So one of the things that we offer therapy to everyone that comes through us, but regular therapy is not for everyone. Like my wife went to regular therapy and almost re-traumatized her. So dance therapy, we went and worked with Gabby and had my wife experience it. And once we were finished, we got in the car and heading home, and I looked at her and I'm like, how was it? She said, that was great. I said, really? It was a little different for me because Gabby had me out there moving around too. And I'm like, this is different for me. But we do dance therapy, the regular therapy. We have a program that we would love to follow a victim for 6 months. But victims come and go. They might talk to us today and get one service and leave. We won't hear from them again in 3 months. So we want to surround them with as many things as we possibly can. So we may not have everything that a survivor needs, but we have some amazing partners. Like I talked about clothing. For our children, we get our clothing from one of our very first referral partner was an entity called Note in the Pocket. Amazing nonprofit that makes sure they clothe kids with dignity and love. So that's where a lot of our kids' clothing from. Another partner that a lot of people don't think about are cell phones. Sometimes these cell phones get taken by the abuser, or they have the number and they can't change it on the plan or whatever. We have emergency cell phones where we can give a victim a cell phone that will last for 60 days, or a phone that just comes call 911. We do that simply, we want to make sure that they have communication as can. So shout out to our friends at the phone bank, the 911 phone bank, for providing that their phone. So if you got an old phone that you're not using, please send it our way because we'll wipe it if it hasn't been wiped and get it recycled that abuser, not abuser, but a victim and survivor can use for their safety.
Awesome. Awesome. You definitely talked about, different programs and services that you didn't talk about before you did talk about therapy.
Yeah.
But yes, dance therapy, express and release therapy.
Yeah, and there's some other stuff that we have on the I say slow cooker. We put it on the back of the stove. The reason why we do that, there's a lot that we want to do, but we are a very small organization. Like I said, we don't have any employees. We have volunteers until we start hiring people. Hopefully, like I said, we get our first hire this year, first couple. Then we can start expanding services. We can't expand services until we get the people that are in place to do that and expand a lot more services. I got a lot of ideas. My wife has a lot of ideas of things that we want to do. We had someone from a federal agency share with us about there is over in the Midwest, I think she said Chicago or somewhere, they do hula hoop therapy. And I looked at it, I was like, hula hoop therapy? She said, yep, they put hula hoops on. And she said it's thriving. They got a bunch of people doing hula hoops, and that's helping them. One of the taglines that my wife uses is everyone heals differently, because it's so true. What might work for you may not work for me. What might work for this person may not work for that person. I'm a fan of therapy. I've been to therapy. I still do therapy from time to time. Therapy sometimes can be triggering because you got to relive certain things, and that's not great for everyone. Whereas the dance therapy, that body movement helps them feel more relaxed and at ease. People need to try grounding exercises. There's a lot to be said about getting out in nature, taking those shoes off, walking barefoot in the grass and in nature, and going for walks and things like that. We have one individual once. We had an individual who wanted to learn self-defense, and I'm like, we're probably not going to teach that. Well, I got an individual that's like, you can send your clients our way, and we can help teach them self-defense. So, but we're open to trying anything, doing anything, and we got some amazing volunteers that come with us that come up with a lot of different ideas, all the time, and we're excited about our future.
Nice. So I do want to ask,
Mhm.
so your values, empowerment, empathy, family.
Yeah.
How does Shining Light in Darkness live up to that?
So,
And go
ahead. No, go ahead.
And I was going to say number two, why those three words in particular?
So we did an exercise last year, and we did a little changing in some of the branding and some of our messaging. And as we honed down a lot of the values that we're looking at, we could have put a page of a bunch of them. The empowerment is, we want to make sure that we empower survivors. We're never going to tell them what they should do, but we want to make sure that we give them the power, because the power has been taken from them. So now we want to make sure that we give them the power to take it back. So we're going to give them advice and thoughts to help them make the decision for them at the time. So that's why empowerment is one. Empathy was a big one. And the reason why empathy was a big one is we've talked to a little too many survivors since we've been in the Triangle area where they felt they weren't being seen, heard, or supported. And we wanted to make sure that everyone knows that you come to us, you're going to feel seen, heard, and supported. When I tell you that, you're not a client, just a client in name, you're a part of our family, it's because I want to say about 80% of people affiliated with us from a volunteer standpoint has been either directly impacted or somebody in their circle has been impacted by either domestic violence or sexual assault. Family's important to us. We can all talk about we have some different family, but when you're in a family unit, you stick together. No matter what comes, a strong family unit is going to stick together. No matter what storm blows, a strong family is going to stick together. We want to make sure that we're sticking together with anyone who comes our way. Like, you might say, call us and say, Ed, this is what I'm dealing with right now, but I'm not ready to leave. Okay. All right. Well, here's some stuff that we can share with you. We're here for you. But then call us 6 months later, I'm ready to leave. And then all of a sudden, like, no, I'm not ready to leave. So, but family is going to still be there for you. Guess what? We're going to still be there for you. Pick up the phone and call us. So family is a big, big thing for us. Like, we involve our family in the organization from time to time, help and support us as volunteers and things like that. And, it's just something that was truly important to us, because sometimes the individuals that have been through that feel like their family's been broken in a way. So we want to make sure that they have a family unit with us here.
So have you had, in some cases, victims come to you for a day or two, like you mentioned, and leave for 6 months and then come back?
Yeah, and we have some that haven't come back. The biggest one that haunts me is we were referred someone that was dealing with domestic violence and sexual assault, and her abuser had basically kidnapped the kids. So we and left her in the place with no card, no food, no nothing. We gave her food. We gave her some clothing for her and the kids when the kids came back, and stuff like that. One night at around 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll never forget this. Because she didn't have her kids and didn't know where they were, and he was threatening her, she said, I'm going to take my life.
She called you?
She texted me. She said, I'm going to take my life. I happened to be up and was able to see the message, and I'm like, no. I did something that I wasn't supposed to do. I called 911. We're not supposed to get individuals connected to the police or other entities as agencies. We're supposed to somewhat draw a line, but my conscience would not let me. If something happened to her and I saw her name on the news, I don't know how I would have lived with myself. She had the police intervened, saw her, talked to her, found out that The abuser had came back that day, sexually assaulted her, and took her to a local hospital. And she fussed me out through text messages. You just made things worse, and this and that. Like, she was really upset with me, and I felt a little bad that she was upset with me, but I was glad that she was okay. Another program that I don't talk about, it's not on our website, but depending on the situation that's going on, we provide ring cameras, doorbell cameras, and inside cameras for it. I had allocated one for her, and the next day I said, "We still have the camera for you if you need it." She said, "Yes, I want it." So I personally go deliver the camera to her, and I'll never forget. She opens the door, she looks at me, she starts crying. She says, "I'm sorry, thank you," and just gave me this big hug. I was like, "Thank you." After that, I've not heard back from her.
How long has it been?
It's been a few months. It's been a few months. I haven't heard back. I have another one. Another case that sits with me is we have an individual that a mother, two daughters, and their abuser were staying in one of these extended type hotels. She would not talk via phone. Everything was via text. So I'm going back and forth with her. We had arranged to put them on a train to get out of the city, to get them to another city. We had another agency in another city set to receive them. We arranged a meetup spot because I wasn't personally going to go to where they dwelled because I don't know if he's around. I have to be safe too. I told him to meet me at this spot at this time because they said he leaves every day around this time. So the time comes, I'm sitting waiting for them. I text her, I'm like, "I'm here." She responds, "He's still here. What should I do?" "I will stay here as long as you need me to." An hour. He's still here. If he leaves, let me know I'm still here. I'm like, we still can get you on this train. And I never heard back from her again. I keep her text messages in my phone just in case she responds back one day. So it's things like that that stick with me because I don't know what's happened to them. And they could have been some high lethality cases. So that's one of the things I struggled with early, compartmentalizing the cases and the work that we do, and not taking it home, not taking it to bed, and things like that. It's a little challenging for me simply because I have a big heart, and I want to make sure that everyone's taken care of. Um, but it's a challenge, and I see why a lot of people doing this work tend to burn out. It's a lot to hear it every day, 8 hours a day, hearing stuff like this. You can burn out real quick. So to all those advocates, other agencies, not just in North Carolina, across the states that are doing this work, thank you. Thank you. We value you and appreciate you. Appreciate you. You may not ever hear that from some other individual, but we do, and we need you. Make sure that you're taking time for yourself to decompress and go away and take care of yourself. Um, self wellness is a major thing that you need to make sure you're doing when you're doing this type of work, because it can wear you out.
Wow. Carrying the trauma of other people's lives.
Oh, it's called trauma bonding, and it's real. I will say, all of my wife's incidents happened way before we met. But when she started going through that that trauma phase where a lot of it comes spreading out, I felt myself like I was right in it with her, and I experienced it, and I had to go talk to someone because, like, here's my wife, absolutely love her. I cannot heal or fix most men, not all men, providers and protectors. I couldn't protect her for stuff that happened before I came along. So I'm beating myself up on the inside, and I'm like, oh God, because I'm watching her like in these states of just weariness, tiredness. And I sit and I look at her, but even in those states, she's still trying to help others. And then she's tired and still carrying some of her baggage that she still hasn't unpacked completely. Because healing is a journey. Sometimes some people never heal. They carry it with the rest of their lives. They're just past it and gotten stronger as to where they were before. But But to all the advocates out there, I love them. I thank them for all the work that they're doing, because if they didn't do it, who would do it? And it's mostly women doing this work. We need more men. We need more men. I sat into a training class a couple of weeks ago, about 20 people in the room. I was the only man in the room. I'm going to a conference tomorrow. It's the Women's a Council on Women's Affairs or something like that. I'm going to count how many men in the room. One of our hashtags we use is men, will you take a stand? Can you imagine a powerful imagery if you got 50 or 100 men standing up saying no more domestic violence, no more sexual assault? That's what we need. So I always try to bring as many men on board as I can. And I'm happy to say that we got some strong men on our board and that are supporting us because they see the need for men to stand up. And whether I'm talking about individuals, not individuals that just identify as men, but men standing up.
So I do have a question. When you're communicating and interacting with the victims that come to see you through Shining Light in Darkness, focusing on the communication, do you only communicate with victims when they reach out to you, or do you occasionally text them, hey, thinking of you, or is that too personal?
I try not to.
Because you said, like, such and such hasn't texted you in 6 months. Like, do you wait for her to text you, or you wait for whoever to text you or contact you, or?
Yeah, so for the ones that have my cell phone number and have texted me, I will do check-ins. Hey, how you doing?
How frequent?
It varies. It varies. I might check
Depends
in.
on your relationship.
Yeah, it depends on the relationship. I got one individual that she had gone silent on me for a while and got re-engaged with me. She was feeling anxiety and anxious about going to the first day of school with her daughter because her abuser might show up. And she asked me personally, would I go? At first I was like, eh. But I went and spent a couple of hours walking through the school with her. At one point she had stopped talking for a couple of months and then reached back out. So me personally, I try to have what I call my tickler file, that I will reach out to people on a regular basis. Especially the ones that have my cell phone number, I will do that. But I know my wife reaches out to certain individuals that might stick with us, but sometimes it gets difficult because if you don't have enough staff, like right now we have the amount of people that are actually working with victims. We have 3 people that are actually working with the victims right now. That's going to change in the very near future, but we only have 3. And all 3 of them are volunteering, and they have to volunteer when they can volunteer. So the office phone rings to my wife and my cell phone, and one other person's cell phone. And it's whoever grabs it first is not busy. So I try to have lax schedules because I have a lot more freedom with what I do for a day job at times. But as we grow, we'll be able to do more touch points. We'll be able to have little different things where, come on in, we're doing an ice cream social. Come on, hang out. Come do this if you want to. But it varies, how often you touch point, because you're constantly getting people in the funnel, and sometimes ones that have gone quiet on you. You got to focus on the ones that are still there, that are still coming in front of it, because they're coming every single day. We got people. I don't know how they find us on our website, because our analytics are not we're not ranked high on Google, but we still got people that are finding us. Every day we're getting a message in our inbox, and then I'm getting referrals from social service and the victim service in the police department on a regular basis. So we're handling those, and the ones that are trying to stay communicating with them, we stay with them. And then when we got time, try to reach out to the ones that maybe have gone quiet. Like, so one of the things, like, if everyone that comes to me, we offer the free therapy that I told you. I tell them, I said, you have 30 days to schedule your first appointment, because I want to put some ownership on them, help empower them to make the appointment. After 30 days, you haven't made your appointment, you and I have to have a conversation. What hindered you from making your appointment? I was scared. Okay, would you like me to be in line with you? Will you make your appointment? Um, sometimes they say yeah. Sometimes they start a couple sessions of therapy and they're like, it's too much. I got to step away from that. It's a lot for some people to carry.
So what makes you give victim A your cell phone number and not victim B? Because I assume that you don't give every single person.
No,
So like what?
the people that have my phone number have my number because where we were before. So before getting an office, we did everything virtually. Our office was our home. We talked to people in our home office and everything. Our main phone number was a cell phone number. So either they had that main cell phone number that either I carried with me or my wife carried with me, and then I have an extra phone that I use for that. So that's how we were using to communicate people. If some individuals right now, they call our main number now, because we actually have a full-blown phone system now and major office, and our crisis, 24-hour crisis line will be online hopefully within the next week or so. There's certain individuals that if they seem like they're in high lethality issues, you got my cell phone number. Like if there's weapons on the premises, have they been strangled or choked? This is my cell phone number. If you need to reach out to me, reach out to me. And I try to be, and I don't know, I say I'm responsive as I can on my cell phone. But I do not make it a practice of giving out my cell phone. I want everyone to either call our main office number or everyone start calling that crisis line number, because that's going to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And not only is it a crisis line phone number, it is actually a text, because some individuals can't pick up the phone and call. Abusers are right here. You can't really, but they can text. So we will have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week text line that they can text, I need help. All right, what's going on? And they can go back and forth for them.
So how could someone get involved? You talked about Shining Light in Darkness being a 100% volunteer-led nonprofit. You did say that you have a family that you're thinking of hiring. So how could someone get involved to be a part of your cause and
Yeah, there's multiple ways. I would say right now our biggest need is we need individuals to help man our 24-hour crisis line. They will work in 4 to 5 hour shifts. They pick when they want to do those 4 to 5 hours. The prerequisite is you have to take 42 hours of advocate training. It's 20 hours of sexual assault training, 20 hours of domestic violence training, and then 2 hours of what's called advocate privilege. And which advocate privilege simply means is you can't be forced by a court to divulge anything because you hold that privilege to safety, based like attorney-client privilege. We're always looking for individuals that maybe want to do a fundraiser for us, or have us come talk to their group or their club, or we've spoken at several churches, which has been amazing. We had one amazing church, St. Titus Church here in Durham. The pastor was gracious enough to let us speak at her 8:30 service and 10:30 service. It's huge. Always could use funds. Always could use funds. I say one of the easiest way to support is monthly donation. You can do a monthly donation, $10, $15, $25. We know how to stretch a dollar. We know how to stretch a dollar to make it work. We're looking for individuals that have certain skills that could enhance. Like if maybe you're a tech person, help us with some technology. We just brought on some more new volunteer board members that raised their hand and want to serve on the board, and walk them through that. We have the lady that's our education and outreach specialist. She says, when you get the funding, I don't want to be hired. I'm retired. I want to do this, because this is my ministry. I want to give back. So we're looking for people that want to be legal advocates, maybe potentially volunteer legal advocates to go inside the courtroom. I talked about the cell phones that we do. Maybe you want to have a cell phone drive. You can have an intimate party or group at your home and say, everybody come, bring their old cell phones, and we're going to hear a little pitch about Shining Light, what they're doing, and how they're using or recycling these phones for victims and survivors. If you want to volunteer, I'll figure out a way to help you volunteer. You tell me how many hours that you have in the month, and I'll figure out something to do, like admin. Somebody help us with our admin. We don't have administrative. If someone can do social media, want to volunteer and do social media, I hate social media. So if you have a skill, talent, or a gift that you feel that you can use, that you want to use. We'll figure out how to use. We got one guy joining our board. He is an HR director out of DC. And he's like, oh, I can help you out, build y'all plan to start hiring individuals and making sure you got all this in place and stuff like that. So just little things like that. But more importantly, I tell people the easiest way to support, I don't care whether it's Short Board, Shining Light, or another organization, like, comment, and share.
Yeah.
Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, Shining Light in Darkness. You see something that resonates with you, share it with us. Like Monday was National Dog Day, I think it was. And there's a big correlation between domestic violence victims and their pets. Like there's a lot of shelters around the country that don't take pets. So people can't go to the shelter because they're not leaving their pet. Some hotels are not going to allow you to take your pet. So where do you go for that? So just any way you want to volunteer, I'll find something for you to do. But like, comment, and share, easiest way. Just share our message. I thank you because I see you on our page. Thank you just for simply liking. I know some of the subjects get a little uncomfortable and things like that, but by you liking it, somebody in your audience is seeing it. Somebody in your audience might be a victim, did not know where to turn. Now they have somewhere to turn when they're ready. It's as simple as that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard him. Like, comment, and subscribe. Shining Light in Darkness.
Yes.
I'm sorry. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah.
Ed,
Pleasure.
it's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for wanting to be interviewed. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
This was a great conversation.
You.
Do you have any lasting comments that you would like to say to the camera? Or
I will simply say that if you are a survivor, you do not have to be alone. If you need support, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to serve you. Or if you know someone that might need our services, please share our information with them. Take care.
Thank you so much, Ed.
I appreciate you, man.